Welcome to Dominate Your Day, the podcast for corporate leaders, visionaries, and founders who are ready to lead from within. I'm Dana Williams, and after 25 years as a corporate leader myself, I've discovered a powerful truth. The next level of your leadership isn't about more doing, it's about more being. Today, you'll hear from a difference maker who's learned that everything they needed to transform their team and their organization was already within them. They've stopped chasing external validation and started leading from their authentic strengths, purposes, and values. This is what I call the internal revolution. And it's the foundation of my book, Internal Revolution: Lead Authentically and Build Your Personal Brand from Within. It's now available on Amazon. Let's dive in. Althea, welcome to Dominate Your Day.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Well, I love your story and I love your passion. And in the green room, we were talking about how you just feel this amazing peace right now because you're in your element. So, this is my desire for all of our clients and the people that get to watch Dominate Your Day and listen to Dominate Your Day is really because these people are difference makers and they want to make an
Mhm.
impact. And I think your story can help them. So, can you share a little bit about your journey and your career journey and leadership, how you got to where you are right now?
Absolutely. And so I actually wasn't born in the United States. I was born in Jamaica, West Indies, and came to this country when I was relatively young, about 2 or 3 years old. And so, throughout my time in this country, being an immigrant and having, noticing that at a very young age, I had students in elementary school with me that would say things like, you should go back to your own country. And so, just living with knowing that I was different
Mm.
happened at a very young age. And so I actually went to law school. I am the mother of a single, I am the parent, this child of a single parent. And
Mm.
my mom had always worked 3 jobs. Like I always remembered her working multiple jobs. And her desire was that my sister and I would never have to work as hard as she did. So
Oh,
the running like desire and dream of my mother was I was supposed to be the lawyer, my sister was supposed to be the doctor. The running joke in our family is my sister got smart enough not to go to medical school. I, on the other hand, did go ahead and go to law school.
oh,
Um,
wow.
and within a year in, I realized it wasn't something that I was really passionate about. And I really firmly believe that you should love what you do. Life
Mhm.
is just too short. Time is just too
Mhm.
precious. And so I felt like I've already gone through 1 year. I'm going to go ahead and complete it because the first year is the hardest. And so finished law school, prepared for the bar, and I'm a Christian, and like we talked about in the
Mhm.
green room, and I prayed. I was like, Lord, I'm only going to take it once, so let
Yeah.
Your will be done. And so, thankfully, I passed the
Mhm.
bar on the first time,
Oh, wow.
and I knew I didn't want to do it, but I had to pay bills. I had to figure out what I was going to do next. And so, while I was waiting for my bar results, I saw a posting at a recruiting firm called Richard Wayne and Roberts, and the posting was for a law clerk. And so I'm waiting to get my bar results, call in and say, hey, I'm really interested in this job. And they said, have you ever thought about recruiting? I'm like, I don't know about recruiting. I just want this law clerk job. Lo and behold, 2, 3 weeks worth of conversations. And I started as a legal recruiter. So I started as a legal
Wow.
recruiter, and I did that for a while and I was doing well. It was a really crazy kind of commission against draw. So if you don't make any placements, you don't get a paycheck really. And I remember telling my managing director, I said, I just don't love it. And I don't know why I don't love it. And he goes, you're doing really well. So I don't know why either. He says, why do you do it? I said, well, I do this because I love to help people get jobs. And he goes, that
Mm.
is not why people become headhunters, Althea. They do it for the money. Um,
Wow.
and so shortly after, that's when I started my recruiting career. And so, after that, I went and worked at the Career Services Office for University of Houston. And I've worked at what I call some famous and infamous brands. I worked at Enron, I've worked at Visa, I've worked at Apple, BNY Mellon, Texas Instruments. And, I've had a really great career recruiting everything from interns to board of directors for Fortune 500 companies, all around the globe, Singapore, Germany, India, you name it. And most recently, I was at the NY Mellon and left and decided to take a bet on myself. And I started
Mm.
Transformational Talent Group. And so at Transformational Talent Group, we focus on really one professional one-on-one coaching with individuals, whether they're looking to make their next step, whether they're looking for a job and trying to figure out what their next career move is going to be. Um, Two, we work with students. So we partner with universities and nonprofit organizations to help college students find their next job and transition into the marketplace. It's, it's interesting because it's all the secrets that nobody tells them, but they're just automatically supposed to know their first day in corporate America. And then we help partner with companies doing different trainings and assessments of their recruiting process. And so it's been quite a journey. I've been in business about 9 months now. And if you had told me a year ago I would be here, I would probably say absolutely not. Um, but I'm the
Wow.
happiest I've been in 25 years of working.
Wow. And what do you think that is?
I think I decided to follow my heart. And
Mm.
it's interesting. I've always said I've chosen work opportunities because of my ability to make an impact. And so that has driven my career decisions probably over the last 10 to 12 years. Um, Something happened, and I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it was, the birth of my daughter and wanting to spend more time at home as a first time mom. But I stopped focusing on impact a bit and I started focusing on legacy. And so I started
Mm.
focusing on what do I want to be known for? At the end of the day, when my time has come, what kind of legacy am I going to leave behind? And I really feel with transformational talent that this is where I'm supposed to be, that I'm making, not only am making an impact, but I am leaving a bit of a legacy. And so, my heart is full. And I tell people, right, like that's ultimately where you want to be. Um,
Mm.
it just might take, some people find out right away. Like my husband figured it out right away. He's been in the job that he's loved ever since he left school. It took me a little while longer, but
But
the
look at
journey's
the
not as important as the destination.
That's right. And look at the experience you got that led you to it was everything led you to you couldn't have started this company if you hadn't had,
No,
worked at Apple and Visa and BNY and Texas Instrument. I mean, those are some pretty big brands, and for you to be leading at that time,
yeah.
the recruiting that was amazing. So, were there any defining moments in those environments that shaped your leadership style?
Wow. I think one of the defining moments might have been when I was actually at TXU Energy years ago. I helped our general counsel at the time build out the first legal department at
Mm.
the organization. And one of the roles that I helped him with was hiring. So I also helped him hire the corporate secretary at the time. Her name is Kim Rucker. And Kim is an African American woman and just absolutely brilliant, but so authentic
Mm.
and so true to who she is. And it made such a difference, I think, because at that time, my examples of leaders were very much structured, very much hard shell, very much, right, like very non personal. And Kim led with grace. She led with authenticity, and she was wildly successful. And I think then I realized that I could do that. Like I could be myself. I could be authentic. I could lead with grace and still be successful. And coming out of law school, where you're trained to think a certain way and be a certain way, Kim was exactly the opposite. And it was phenomenal. And so the other thing I talk to people about is leading with empathy and leading with authenticity, because I think that was when I realized that that was possible.
So, what does leading with authenticity look like to you, and how does that look? Because I love talking about this because I think you're at the heart of what you've been saying, but it's like you're not performing anymore; you're just being you.
Yes.
And so, what is that? What did that look like for you at that time? An authentic leader look like?
At that time, it was the ability to be who you were without shame, without judgment, and without fear. right? And so
Mm,
for me, being authentic leader means I can bring my whole self, right? I can bring the fact that I have a 7-year-old daughter, and guess what? She had the flu last night and she slept in my bed. So I have no makeup on. I'm barely awake, right? I'm
mhm,
trying to caffeinate myself and keep myself throughout the day. Um,
mhm.
I can be sad with you in moments when things are sad, and I don't have to pretend like I'm supposed to have all the answers, right? I can
Yeah.
celebrate with you when it's time to celebrate. I can be confused about something just like you can, right? And so it is
Mhm,
really just, um, really exactly what you said, is it's being able to be myself, um,
mhm.
and being appreciated for it. And, I think it was really interesting when I left BNY, the number of teammates that came to me and said, your authenticity, as well as your empathy, are things that, we just don't see very often in leaders. And I was really humbled and surprised. I think probably because I didn't even realize that about myself. But I've
Wow.
always told the people that I work with, like, work is great and you should have a fulfilling career, right? But there's a whole other part of life that I hope you're giving as much, if not more, time to than your career. And so, it's just, again, I think I'm just at definitely a different point in my life than I was 20 years ago, when I was just focused on my next promotion, my
Yeah.
next big job, right? My next big project.
So I see that empowerment is at the heart of your work.
Yeah.
So what does empowering people and businesses mean to you and in, practical terms as you talk through? I love how you're talking about this mentoring and hearing from what the people that are around you witness and what they
Yes.
said. But what
Yes.
does that look like? What does empowerment look like um, to empower people and businesses?
I think it's a few different things, right? I think it is everything from giving people the skills that they need to succeed, to
Mhm,
helping them identify that they already have the skills that they need to succeed and helping them uncover
mhm,
that. I think it's sometimes giving people the courage that they need, to feel empowered. And so I think definitely people are at different stages of their empowerment journey, right? And some people think they don't have the skill sets and they need help finding them.
mhm.
Some people have them, but they're afraid to use them. And quite often, sometimes it's just a decision point, right? And so as I help people sometimes thinking about their next role, um, I talk to them about that, like, they're in control. It's their decision, right?
Mhm.
Like, you don't have to take any opportunity that you're not excited about. You're in the driver's seat, right? So sometimes it's even just reminding people that
Mm,
they're in charge.
mhm,
But it is interesting how women, I think, inherently we just don't feel empowered. And I think there's some things, that over time has just happened to women, as far as things like being able to advocate for ourselves, right? It's just not usually a skill set that you see very strongly in women, because as raised, we're not necessarily taught to do
mhm.
that, right? And so I think feeling empowered as a woman and feeling like you can advocate for a woman, as a woman, are really big things. And I think when you really grasp that and understand that all of that is within your reach, your grasp, um, it just is mind blowing.
It's a mindset shift, right? It's really
Absolutely.
a mindset shift. So, what when you think about the people you've mentored or people that you've helped transform through your mentorship, is or something that you've facilitated in recently in any of your jobs, can you share a story of when you saw someone actually transform from this to this, that you saw them have that movement that you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, I had a client, and I kind of got her, I think, I would say probably midway through her career search. And she was very much discouraged. She was a bit beat down. And I think what happens quite often, especially in these days that we're in, where people are getting severance packages are running out, right? Like, she was getting to the bit of that end of that package. And that also brings on a whole other set of nerves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she just didn't feel like she was good enough,
Mm,
right? And so we sat down, and some of it, to me, as far as being a career coach, isn't just the coaching part. Like, I consider my clients friends, because I think
mhm.
the journey of navigating your career, especially if you're looking for a role, can be a very lonely one, right?
Hmm.
And so we spent time, looking at her resume, thinking about her accomplishment stories, thinking about how she was going to frame it. We spent time doing mock interviews, although she wanted to kill me. She was like, I cannot do a mock interview with you, Althea. It's going to feel so weird. I was like, you can
Oh.
do this, right? And, she did the homework. She took the
Mm.
time. She made the changes to her resume. She took the time. She made changes to her thank you letters. She took the feedback from the mock interviews and ended up in a position where you know ended up with her dream job.
Yeah.
And she said, Althea, I wouldn't have been able to do this without you. She said, I just started showing up differently. And I said to her, I said, you did all the work, right?
Mhm.
I said, you did all the work. That was you. That was always there. I said, you just needed someone to feel confident in you outside of yourself. And I feel like that's a big part of what I do as a coach, right?
That's a good point, Althea, because I think, and that's why this podcast is for difference makers, because difference makers do the work. They do the work, and I think you make a great point there. You can give everybody that you work with, here's the tools, and I'm here to help you, but they've got to do the work, right?
Exactly.
And she did.
Exactly.
And look at that now. You mentioned in the green room one of the favorite things you have is celebrating the wins with your clients and with
Yes.
your family. Talk about that. I love that.
Oh my gosh. She was so excited when she called me. She was like, I got the offer. And I'm like, you got the offer. So I sent her, these dancing memes, right? And then she calls me right away. I remember being in Costco picking up shrimp for dinner. And like I'm shouting, she's shouting, like we're shouting. And then I get home and I tell my husband, and like he knew we were getting close on this one. Because it was her final interview. She was just waiting for the feedback. And then we celebrate at home because now my clients are
Oh.
almost like friends. My husband hears the story, like so and so had a bad day. I need to say a prayer for them, or so and so is having an interview coming up. I need to say a
Mhm.
short prayer for them, or I need to check in on
I
them.
love
And
that.
so he's like, we got to go out and celebrate. And I'm like, absolutely. So we go out and celebrate when my clients land a job. As much as they celebrate, I feel like that's also, I'm a cheerleader, right? So when you're having a down
Exactly.
day and you need somebody to tell you you're great, I am going to remind you how great you are. And then when you're having a great day, when you get the job, I'm gonna be right there, be like, I knew you were great. See, I told you you were great. Let's celebrate together. And so I really feel like I'm making a difference in people's lives, and I couldn't be happier.
That is amazing. I love how your family celebrates with you.
Yeah,
That
we
is
get
so
excited.
fun. Yes, I love that. So tell us about why you created Transformational Talent Group, and what is the gap that you're feeling with this with your organization that you've created
Oh,
9 months ago, right?
yeah. Oh, so what brought me here? You know, After 25 years kind of doing corporate America, I just paused, right? It was very typical for me to work, a 60 plus hour work week. It was very typical for me to work Saturdays and Sundays. As I mentioned, I have a 7-year old. I felt like I
Mhm.
wasn't spending as much time with her as I wanted. Um, I felt like I was helping companies really do well, but maybe not individuals, which is very strange because I was in charge of recruiting. But at the level of recruiting that I was at, you're more doing the strategy and you're more, talking to executives. You're not really working with the individual person that's getting a role at the company on a day-to-day basis. And so um, I felt like I was making an impact for a company, but not necessarily impact on people's lives. And
Mm.
so I had been thinking about doing this for a couple of years, and I finally made the jump and decided to do it. It took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be on my own because I
Mhm.
wanted the flexibility to be a mom. And oddly enough, in addition to being a mom and having Transformation Talent Group, I'm also the president of the PTA at her school. I don't know how all of that
I know.
happened, but go big or go home.
Yeah.
And so, I remember talking to one of my friends and I said, hey, I'm trying to figure out what should I do, right? Should I do, your traditional like recruiting agency? Should I do just recruiting consulting for big companies? And she's known me over three companies now. We've partnered together in different ways, shapes, and forms. And she goes, "Have you ever thought about using your powers for good?" And I started laughing. I'm like, "What do you mean, my powers for good?" She's like, "Helping the candidates." And I was like,
Mm.
"Oh." She's like, "Yeah, there are people who dream to work at the jobs and the companies you've been at. Have you thought about helping people get their dream jobs?" And so I was like, "No." But after she said that, it kept on like nagging me. It wouldn't go
Mm.
away. And so I said, "Okay, I'm going to focus on helping people." And then, throughout my career, I've always managed, pretty much all my career, I've always managed some form of college recruiting in my portfolio. And so I thought, why stop with just people who are out in the workforce trying to think about their next? Why not help students enter into the workforce? A lot of the studies are showing that employability skills for students, such as communication and professionalism, is lower than it should be or is expected by managers. And so I just felt like there's a gap there that I could fill,
Sure.
as far as like students making their transition into corporate America. I mean, I remember when I started, there were so many things
Mm.
I was supposed to know that I just didn't know. And then for professionals, it was interesting. I just had a few people who just knew me and said, "Hey, I know you're thinking about doing coaching. Would you consider coaching me? Or you already give me advice and coach me for free. I'm going to start paying you." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? No." Um, and that part of the business just, started to take off as well. And so I'm really excited about, where we are and kind of what lies ahead.
And how did you pick the name? Transformational talent.
Mhm. Yes. So I wanted transformation in there. And it's so overused. So my husband kind of makes fun of me sometimes about that. But I really wanted to transform people's lives.
Hmm.
And so I kind of got transformational there. It was quite the ordeal trying to come up with the name, because I wanted it to be something that meant something to me.
Hmm.
And so the thought is, whether you're an individual, we hope to transform you. Whether you're going into, whether I'm at a company, helping them with a project, we're hoping to transform the talent you bring into the organization or the talent that you channel through the organization. And so it was really focused on the word transformational or transform, and it kind of just took off from there.
That's amazing. I'm dying to know your Clifton Strengths if you haven't done them yet. We got to get those because
Oh my gosh, I
um,
have done them. I cannot recall what they are. Um,
I'm picking up your empathy and I'm picking up belief. Probably from what you're saying, what you're talking there. Belief is like core values that are unwavering,
yes, yes,
and then developer, which or individualization, which is helping people be their best and customizing for each person is the
yeah.
individualization. So I'm kind of picking up those. I'm like, oh, I'd love to see those. But yes, you have some talents that are and I think when you talk about in your story how you're finally in your sweet spot, it's usually when you're using your strengths.
It
It's
is.
usually because you're in who you were created to be in
Right.
that calling. So I hear that loud and clear.
And it was
So
tough, right? I think it was tough because
yeah.
going to school, being a lawyer, passing the bar, my whole family, everybody expected me to be a lawyer.
Mm.
And I struggled for a very long time saying, you know what, I went to school. Everybody thinks it's this, just great profession and it's just magical. And, it, I, I didn't love it the times that I tried it. I didn't love it enough to do it. And I remember one
Mhm.
time talking to Kim Rucker, right, the corporate secretary over at TXU Energy, and I was really struggling. And I told her, I said, "Kim, I'm really struggling. Like, I feel like I should, get off of this HR recruiting path, hop on an attorney path." And she said to me, and it was one of the things that has really stuck with me. She said, "Everybody doesn't have to be a duck. And you don't have to be a
Mhm.
duck." And so if you think about ducks, they just follow each other one after the other in a line,
Mhm.
right? So because everybody that goes to school, all school is an attorney, and then they go on to be a partner or a general counsel, right? Like everybody doesn't have to be a duck. You don't have to be a duck. And I think it was the first time in my life that I was actually able to shed just the burden I was feeling of needing to live up to people's expectations, around being an attorney and feeling free to be happy in what I do. And right after that is when I got the offer from Apple, um, and picked up and left Texas and moved across the country, for a
Wow.
job like I had no idea I would ever get the opportunity for.
Okay, now I just want to see what is your advice for aspiring HR leaders? You've done this in so many great
Yeah.
companies and had the opportunity to get in all these different cultures. What is something that you want to share with HR leaders, talent recruiters like yourself, skills and mindsets that are the most important in today's environment?
I think one is learn the business. I think we
Mm,
underestimate how important that is. And it's something that no matter what company I'm at, I strive to do. And I continue to remember to learn the business during my time. So I think even if you've been at a company 5 or 10 years, there's always business or parts of the business to continue to learn. I think build your network. I think, we are still very much in a world, unfortunately, that it's more about who you know than what you know. I think advocating for
mm,
yourself is important because the other thing I've also noticed is gone are the days where, people are consistently recognized for doing a good job without advocating for themselves, right?
mm.
I do think being empathetic, whether you're leading or not
Yeah,
leading, um, having grace for those people around you and for yourself. And then just spending time to continue to invest in your craft, whether that might be
that's great.
courses, blogs, articles, whatever that might look like.
So, as you're coaching people in the workplace now that are changing careers, what is the biggest challenge you see right now for, you hear all the things out there like, oh, it takes more than
Yes.
6 months now to find a
Yes.
job, and some of the things you were saying about who you know. But what do you think is the best bit of advice you'd give for that person out there looking right now?
Oh, wow. There are a couple things I would advise people. One, to learn AI, start using it, right? So you don't necessarily have to be a master, but it could be super helpful in your job search. Whether it's to help you
Mm,
interview by saying, here's the job description, what type of interview questions will I be asked so you can practice, whether it's to help you write a cover
that's
letter,
great.
whether it's to help you write your LinkedIn profile. AI is never 100% correct, but it's always a great place to start from, I find, when folks are just
Hmm.
at a pause and not knowing where to start from. Um, a lot of studies are still showing that just applying to jobs and hoping something will come of it, um, is not the way the majority of people are getting jobs. It's still through networking. And even if you apply for a job, take a look. Does somebody in your LinkedIn network work there that can follow up your application?
Hmm.
So I often recommend to people that, once you are applying online, there are tons of people still getting jobs by just applying online. Don't get me wrong. But if you have somebody in your network that works there, feel free to reach out to them and ask
Hmm.
them to ensure that your resume gets in the right hands. And then I would say, when you kind of start thinking about the interview, um, really practice, what I refer to as kind of your accomplishment stories. People call it different things. But what are those 3 to 4 scenarios that hit a number of those more popular interview questions, right? Whether it might be, what are your greatest weaknesses? Tell me about a time you worked on something that didn't go well. What are things you're most so proud of? Tell me about a time where you influenced a business leader. If you really think about it, you'll probably have 4 or 5 core experiences that can answer a ton of those questions. So it's good to have those core stories in your back pocket to pull from. I find that if you have a really good set, it'll answer about 80% of the questions. And so that usually puts people at ease, to know that they won't be
That's
caught
great.
off foot, for the few that, they don't know the answer to. And then I would say believe in yourself. It is,
Hmm.
for some people, it's a short journey. For some people, it's a long journey. But what is for you is going to find you. and nobody's going to be able to take it away. Nobody's going to stop it. So if it's a job that you interviewed for and you didn't get it, you weren't supposed to get that one. For some reason, that one wasn't in the cards for you. But the one that has your name on it, and there is one out there, nothing and no one is going to stop you from reaching that. So whatever you need to do to keep confident, to keep calm, to keep feeling secure in yourself, do that. Step away from the computer. Don't spend 9 hours a day looking for a job. Walk your dog, have a good meal, spend time with your kids, right? Make sure you find that balance in the search, because it can really be draining.
Yeah. So when you think about 2026 and beyond, you've been in your business for 9 months. I hear your empathy. I hear all these amazing talents. What's next for you? And what do you see is the thing that you should be concentrating on as a founder-led company now, and really helping your clients get to the next step? What are some things that are kind of keeping you up at night as you're thinking about building this organization?
The thing I think about the most is, and maybe I'm thinking way too far ahead, but when the business takes off, not if, when the business takes off, will I be able to provide people the same level of kind of care and compassion? And, so basically, how do I not dilute the brand? And so some of the contracts that I'm praying for that I hope come to fruition would mean that I would have to hire people to help with it. And so right now I'm trying to think through, right, like how do I continue to have the same feeling of support, strategic advisor, friend, coach, as the business gets larger, because I do feel like that's my differentiator, right? My clients text me, they call me, they write, like we're not on this, clock where I'm like, oh, that's $15. Oh, we talk for 20 minutes, that's X amount of dollars, right? And so how do I still have people feel that same way as the company grows?
You can do it. I want to encourage you. I just came from a luncheon today, the first luncheon I've had for my advocates in my client base. And we celebrated. And the fact that, and I had one of my coaches that I brought on last year there, and it was just such a feeling of, we can do this. We can be together. We can serve them. I get to be with each of them, but I also have a coach helping me. And I also have a team helping me. And so I just want to encourage you to do it. And just coming off this luncheon, I want to tell you, and they love being together and community. So it's figuring out one to many, that you do what you do well, but you do it with more people.
Exactly.
And so it's that. So yeah. So you're on your way there. You got it. So I can tell you that. Althea, as we get ready to close out, is there anything that I didn't ask you today about your transformation and now helping others with transformation that you want to make sure you share with the audience as they're thinking about what they're doing in their businesses, and how do they stay authentic in their roles? And anything?
The only thing I can think of is to thine own self be true. And so, there is a dream that you had for your business. There's a dream you had for your career. There are things that you wanted to do, right? Everything is still in reach. Everything is still doable, right? What I realized, like I said, it took me 25 years to get to this point, right? And so the path is not always as direct as we like. The timing is not always what we would like it to be. But it will happen, right? You put in the work, you stay focused, you stay true to yourself, because that has always been a really important part to me. Right? Can I look in the mirror and say I'm the same person I was? That I'm still, a wife, a daughter, a mother, a sister, and like the core of who I am is still here throughout whatever opportunity, whatever business. So I would say, to thine own self be true to yourself. Be hopeful, be brave, be fearless, be patient. Like I said, what's for you, no one else can take away.
That's right. Oh, I love that. What a great way to end our talk today, with some great advice. And just, I want the audience to hear your story about how you feel so in your spot that you were created to do and that calling. And we really want that for everyone here that gets on Dominate Your Day, to hear these stories and to feel like, oh, I can get that, but maybe I'm not in the right
Hmm.
place right now. So want to be able to do that. So thanks for sharing your story. Loved having you here. And we will put your information in the notes, but feel free to share any way that you want people to reach out to you as you're reaching out to help them find the right jobs and the right opportunities, the right career.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. It has been a pleasure and honor. And, folks can reach out to me super easy. Well, maybe not. It's my name, Althea, Althea, at transformationalgroup.com, transformationaltalentgroup.com.
That's awesome.
It's a long one.
There you go. It's a long one, but they'll find you. Okay. Well, we'll put it in the show notes too.
Thank
Thank you
you.
again for being with us today.
This has
Loved
been
having you
wonderful.
here and wish
Same
you the
to you.
best. What an incredible conversation. Remember, everything you need to lead with greater impact is already within you. You don't need to be more productive. You need to be more you. If today's episode resonated, please subscribe and share it with a fellow leader who's ready for their internal revolution. And if you want to dive deeper for these concepts, grab a copy of Internal Revolution, Lead Authentically, and Build Your Personal Brand from Within. It's on Amazon. And if you're ready to discover what's possible when you lead from the inside out, I'd love to create a space for that conversation. Head to danawilliamsco.com for your resources and to book your free discovery call, where we can explore what you want to achieve for yourself, your team, and your organization. Until next time, keep leading from within.